Feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour was come, that he should depart out of this world unto the Father, having loved his own which were in the world, he loved them unto the end. And supper being ended, the devil having now put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and went to God, he riseth from supper, and laid aside his garments, and took a towel, and girded himself. After that he poureth water into a basin, began to wash the disciples' feet, and to wipe them with the towel wherewith he was girded. Then cometh he to Simon Peter, and Peter saith unto him, Lord, dost thou wash my feet? Jesus answered and said unto him, What I do, thou knowest not now, but thou shalt know hereafter. Peter saith unto him, Thou shalt never wash my feet. Jesus answered him, If I wash thee not, thou hast no part with me. Simon Peter saith unto him, Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head. Father, I pray you bless your word tonight to your people, and give me the power and what I need to convey to them, and you'd meet every single need here in the hearts of your people. And we'll thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. It's a familiar passage in the Bible, and I want to bring out a point in the text not as focused on as much as what Jesus was doing, but the surprise to Peter of what Jesus was doing. Now, Jesus' ministry included a lot of surprises. Healing the sick, cleansing the leper, raising the dead, sight to the blind. I'll call them high-end surprises. But washing feet, maybe not as dramatic as healing, but no less of a surprise to Peter. Peter sees Jesus as the coming king, and his expectations and his preconceived notions say in his finite little mind, kings don't wash feet. Yeah, but Peter, you're forgetting this isn't any ordinary king. And so imagine the scene. They eat a meal, and all of a sudden Jesus gets up, and it says he lays aside his garments. And my first question there is why? I mean, if I'm going to wash your feet, I wash your feet. But it says he laid aside his garments. Was that custom? Would they get in the way? Would they get dirty? You know what I think? I got no idea. But I know he laid aside his garments. And it sure doesn't even, I don't even like to say it, but it doesn't even look like he left his undergarment, because it says he girded himself with a towel. And everybody's probably wondering, what is he doing? And so he washes the feet. I don't know if they're in a line. I don't know if they're in a circle. I don't know if they're sitting around a carpet. I don't know if they're on chairs. But he's washing down the feet, and he comes to Peter. Now, you can always count on Peter to make public from his mouth what everybody else is thinking in their heart. You know anyone like that? If he didn't say there were no men here and only ladies, I wouldn't say like a mother-in-law maybe, something like that, but just got to say something. Doesn't matter the audience, doesn't matter who it hurts. See something, just got to say it. Never a hesitation to confront. Never a hesitation to criticize. And most people that I've met like that, they don't even realize they're doing it. I didn't mean anything by it. And this isn't the message tonight, but I can't resist it. Parents, let me give you some advice in dealing with adult children, especially out of the home. You ever stop to think that we will parent adult children longer than we'll parent children, probably twice as long? Pray for the wisdom. I don't know, I'm from New York, okay? I'm Italian from New York, so if I'm break your culture a little bit, but you got to pray for the wisdom when to shut up, right? As a parent of adult children. In the home, when they are rising to your equal, you don't bang the authority card with a 17-year-old the way you do with a 5-year-old, okay? Married out of the home, It's hard for, I've been pastoring parents for a lot of years. It's hard for them to realize when they are married and out of your home, they are your equal. Every once in a while I'll have one of the older ones from the church come and say, well, that young couple, you know, I straightened them out. Their kid was running around, and I said, would you straighten me out? You know, because we see them come up in the church, and it's still like we're the parents and they're the kids. Some people like Peter just got to say something. My dad was that way. My dad, man. He had no filter. I mean, when I was 5 or 55, there was no difference, no difference. I had an uncle in the drywall business up there for one of the biggest drywall contractors in Rochester. And one day I was talking to my dad. I said, hey, Dad, you believe Uncle Dave and those Militello brothers and how they were those drywall contractors for 40 years? And you know what he said? He says, that's because they were stupid. Okay. My daughter, Julia, she lives in Pensacola, and they had a little boy. And she married a guy from Kentucky. We're Italians from New York. Guys from Kentucky, they don't name their sons Louis or Vito. So I tell my father, I break the news, I say, hey, Dad, Julia had a little boy. And he says, oh, yeah, what'd they name him? And I said, Jackson. Where'd they get that name? See something, gotta say something. My dad was getting up there in age, 88 years old. He had macular, he was blind, he had all these points on his credit card. He said, let's take a trip. I got relatives in California, and I have a son and daughter in Austin, Texas. He said, let's take a trip. We'll go see the cousins in California. Then we'll go see Pat, your son Pat, and Jenna in Austin, and we'll just make it time. Well, I had a lot of health issues that year. I had these surgeries, and so I couldn't go. Well, he goes, blind. These cousins I have in California, they're rich. They got a lot of means. Well, Uncle Pat's coming to California. We're going to put on the dog. They are catering meals. They are taking him out to dinner. I remember calling him one day. I can hear my cousins in the background. He's sitting in the living room. I said, how's it going out there, Dad? He said, nobody cooks here. And I can hear them in the background. Well, he gets on the plane. He goes to Austin. My daughter-in-law just had a baby, 2 weeks. They're doing the same thing. Oh, Grandpa, come on, and taking him out to dinner, and same thing. Nobody cooks here. Well, he's coming home, and I knew that he'd been on a long flight, and he wouldn't have anything to eat. I didn't want to, but I would just, you're 60 years old, maybe be approved of once in your life. So I know he loved Egg McMuffins. So I went to it was the afternoon, I went to 2 different McDonald's, no Egg McMuffins, so I got him a hamburger. And I'll never forget it, man. I'm going to surprise him. He's going to pat me on the back and say I'm the best son on the planet for thinking of him like that. And I hand him that hamburger. He bit into it. He said, me, this is like sawdust. The next day, he says to me, Joe, I got to ask you something. I said, what's that, Dad? He said, was something bothering you yesterday? Well, you asked, right? Yeah, what's the matter? I said, Dad, those are my kids. You're saying they don't cook. They went out of their way, and you're saying they don't cook. And you know what he said? They didn't. Well, then I bought you that hamburger. I wanted to surprise you. I give you the hamburger. You say it tasted like sawdust, and you'll never guess what he said. It did. I mean, I'm 60 years old, man, walk in a room. Who cut your hair? I said, Jay, my friend Jay. He goes, what did you do to make him mad? Your hair's too short. Your pants are too long. You eat too fast. You say, why are you saying all this? Parents, you're going to die old and alone if you don't learn to treat your adult children like adults. Peter saw something. He had to say something. So here's Peter. Here's Jesus washing. Again, I don't know if it's down the line or what. Evidently, he washed some of the disciples' feet. And he gets to Peter. And he starts washing Peter's feet. And Peter says, Lord, dost thou wash my feet? Now, I can't help but bring my heritage and what I grew up with into these things, because you read your life experiences into the Bible. And Italian people, we have a tendency to be very sarcastic, And all I can think of is Jesus going down the line, washing everybody's feet, and he gets to Peter and he says, do you wash my feet? And if Jesus was Italian, he would have said, no. I just washed all these guys' feet. I'm sizing you up for a pair of sandals. What do you think I'm doing? Yes, I'm washing your feet. And here's what Jesus answered, and this is the message. He said in verse 7, what I do, thou knowest not, and I'm glad that next word is in there, now. But thou shalt know hereafter. And isn't that so often how it seems in our Christian life and in our walk? We get what we perceive of how God should act and react to our circumstances and our lives and our marriages and our families and our ministries. And we get it all mapped out the way that He should respond. And then He girds Himself with a towel and reaches for a basin. And we say, this wasn't on my flow chart. You take child rearing, for example. I've been to more parenting seminars and read more books on parenting and even wrote one. And we assume, we get these formulas that, if I do this, then God is obligated to do that. I almost have a verse for that. And I'll be in the Christian Family Hall of Fame. And just about that time, the Lord reaches for a towel. What is this? Are you doing this? Are you allowing this? This wasn't in my plans. I was sure that if I came to this church, my kids would all grow up to be missionaries and pastors' wives. Until the Lord reaches for a basin. I know what I'll do. I'll send them on a missions trip. And they'll see the world missions, and they'll get a burden for God, and they'll surrender. I've seen kids go on missions trips, and a missions trip was the beginning of their downward spiral. That's not supposed to happen. I mean, you got a call from God, you have a family from God, you came to the church of God, you married a man of God, you got a vision from God, and you had an idea the way it was going to be and how the Lord should respond to your decisions. But like Peter, you're in a spot where you're just dumbfounded and you're saying, what is going on? Because God is doing something, or at least allowing something, or not allowing something that wasn't in your plans. And the situation seems out of control. And frankly, we don't like losing God. We don't like losing control of God. We don't like Him getting outside of our little box. How dare God get off my track? How dare God sidestep what I thought He would do or what He was supposed to do? And He didn't even check with me. And totally staggered, we ask, dost thou wash my feet? Only in our situation, it doesn't seem like a foot washing. It's more like a foot thrashing at times. Maybe it's sickness. Maybe it's a wayward child. Maybe you made a promise to give and the next day you got a pink slip. Maybe you find out your spouse isn't the person you married, or that, boy, I don't know if I should use this here. It's in my notes. Or the little country church that you took that you thought was full of angels was full of devils. Some situation that's got you down, that's got you puzzled. Like Peter, you're looking and saying, is this really happening? And sometimes you find yourself saying to God, like my mother used to say to me when she used to want to make me feel guilty, she'd say, where did I go wrong? And that's what we find ourselves saying to God. I must have went wrong somewhere, because certainly this wouldn't happen. Are you really washing my feet? Now here's what Jesus doesn't say. He doesn't say, oh, no, you're mistaken. I'd never do something you didn't understand. I'd never do something that confounded you. I'd never do something without your approval. I wouldn't allow something that's not in your plans. I've heard said, well, God will never give you more than you can handle. I used to believe that till I heard a man say, that's exactly where He wants us, so that He is our only option. Where our only option is Him to bring us to a place where leaning on the everlasting arms is more than a song and a hymnal. It's a life. No, Peter, you're not mistaken. You're not dreaming. But I like what he does say. He said, what I do, thou knowest not now. You know what I think? I don't think our faith is measured by what we're doing for God. I think our faith is measured by how we respond to what He's doing in us. He's more concerned. I've learned it over my Christian life and church work. He's more concerned with building me than what I am building for Him. And I'll just say this, it's okay not to understand what God is doing in your life. Just stay faithful, because sometimes there's only one thing you have to know, and that's Him. Let him that glorieth glory in this, that he understand and knoweth me. Come to the place where I don't know anything that's going on, but I know you. Now here's the good news, and this is the way it usually works. When something is going on not according to plans, we don't understand it now, but if we went around the room, every single one of us could go to a time and a place in our life where we say, oh man, I didn't understand it then, but I understand it now, and I grew in the darkness. Go to John 12, just one page over, 12:16. Verse 15, fear not, daughter of Sion, behold, thy king cometh sitting on an ass's colt. These things understood not his disciples at the first, but when Jesus was glorified, then remembered they the things which were written of him, and that they had done these things unto him. And when we look back, and hindsight is 20/20, and we can see, that's what he was doing, we just wring our hands and say, man, I'm glad I stuck with it. I'm glad I didn't get too far ahead. I'm glad I didn't drag behind. I grew in the darkness. I didn't understand it then, but I can see it clearly now. And that's when we grow. I want to give you 3 instances, personal instances in my own life, where at the time, what are you doing, God? But a little while later, I did. And hopefully give some practical help. One of them, I was saved 1 year. I was saved when I was 26 years old. I was only saved a year. My mom was diagnosed with terminal cancer. I'm a young Christian, man. And she's dying. She's in a hospital bed, and she's dying. She's breathing laboriously, and just every breath is... And I'd see her, and I'd say, okay, she's gone. And she'd take another breath. And I remember going in a little side room. I think they had a chapel in the hospital there. And I was new. Man. I was a year old in the Lord, not even. And I said, why are you letting her suffer? And I didn't hear it then. But I know it now. He says, son, I'm saved not a year. I got a job for you coming down the road, that you're going to be in this place more than you want to be. And you're going to be at a bedside of the afflicted, and those people in that room, it helps them to know when you're trying to comfort them that they know, you know what they're going through. Lord, are you really letting her suffer like this? I didn't understand it then, but after being at the bedsides of the afflicted for 40 years, now I understand why. Number 2, I was saved in a large church up there in Rochester, New York. enrolled in the Bible Institute, involved in ministry. I was a lay pastor for like 100 young married couples, and I'll never forget it. I was 3 years into a 4-year Bible program, and the pastor came and put his hands on my shoulders. My wife was standing next to me, and he said, "You're next on staff." They had 7 pastors, 50 Christian school teachers. I said, "You did? What did it say?" It talks about a pastor. See, these are no good. And the pastor said, "You're next on staff." I said, "Oh boy." Now I'm working a secular job. I don't like it. And so I get this scheme. You know, us Italians, we got a way of wanting to get our way. I know you folks down here, you're real cultured and all that. So I write the pastor a letter, and I said, "Preacher, I got an idea. Let's do co-op. I got a year left of Bible Institute. I'll come on staff now. I'll work for you during the day. I'll do the Bible Institute at night. I'll graduate in a year, and it'll be great." And you know what he said? "No. I want you to finish the Bible Institute." And I'm thinking, why not? And I didn't hear it then, but I know it now. He said, "I got a bigger job for you. You're going to plant a church, and you're going to have a way greater influence in that job I have for you." I didn't understand it then, but I understand it now. Last testimony. I was saved in 1986. My first daughter was born January 1987, Jenna. And then my second born is sitting back there, Claire. And then my third born, Anna. Now you might have to clarify today, those are girls. 3 girls. And then I had my son, Pat. And then it was Deborah, and then Mary, and then Julia, and then Lydia, and then Nicola. 8 girls. Brother, what man on the planet in the history of mankind has prayed for 8 girls? "Oh Lord, I just want 8 daughters." Listen, these young guys, they get married, and their wife is pregnant, and you say, "What do you want, a boy or a girl?" "Oh, I don't care as long as it's healthy." They're lying, they want a boy. And my motive for wanting boys was pure. I wanted preachers. "What are you doing? Dost thou give me girls?" I didn't understand it then. But now that I'm an empty nester, and they're all married, and there's 25 grandchildren, I look and I see, I understand it now. You say, "Are you an old man bragging?" Yeah, on Jesus. But those girls, they made some recordings, and the last I heard, whatever the social media, Instagram, whatever the following, 120,000 followers. I pastored a small country church with maybe 200 people in it. One song they sang had 1 million views. And I know we don't regard the secular media. We don't care. We're not looking to impress them. But that video got in the hands of Good Morning America, 2.8 million viewers. And so they got an interview. And they didn't get on the show itself, but you know, the girls, they sang at my last daughter's wedding, they sang that song, "Sisters, Sisters," 8 sisters, you know. So this guy interviewed them. And they put a big article on their website, and it was good. But you know, the guy that interviewed them, he wasn't exactly the Apostle Paul. I'll just put it that way. And when he got all done, he said, Jenna, do you have any questions or anything to say? And she said this to this man. She said, well, you know, the internet can be a dark place. It can be a depressing place. And we just want to radiate and convey the love of Jesus Christ and the joy of the Lord. And this man said, and I can tell you really, really believe that. Thank you. I think last Sunday, in fact, I know last Sunday, Jenna was playing music in her church in Austin, Texas, and Claire was playing music for her church, and my daughter Deborah was singing with her, and Anna was playing for her church in Pensacola, Florida, and my little baby Cola, she's in a church plant in Stowe, Ohio. She's the only music they got. And my other ones are involved. And at the time I said, Lord, why are you giving me these girls? What I'm doing, you don't understand now, but you're going to know hereafter. Oh, and I don't have these points, but I'm adding points to this message. The girls come home. Them sons, they don't care. Them girls, they want to be with mommy. They want to go for Starbucks. They want to go for coffee. And they want to go shopping. And them 25 grandchildren all together. I know what he's doing now. Glory, glory, glory. Sunday morning, where I preached in a little small church, it's almost like Mt.Pleasant, and something's happening in Texas, and something's happening in Florida, and something's happening in New York, and something's happening in South Carolina, and something happened in Ohio. What I'm doing, you don't understand now, but just stay faithful. Don't get ahead. Don't get behind. You're going to know someday soon. Now, sometimes we're not going to understand it until the very hereafter. Remember Hebrews, it said, these all died in faith, not having received the promises, but were persuaded of them and confessed them, that they were strangers and pilgrims in the earth. Sometime it's not going to be until we see Jesus that we understand, oh, I saw what you're doing now, Lord. But here's what's incredible for Peter. His hereafter, his time of understanding, what God was doing, he said, thou shalt know hereafter. That hereafter wasn't when Jesus died. It wasn't at the empty tomb. It wasn't even on the day of Pentecost. You know what it was? It was 5 verses later. He says in verse 12, so after, look at that after, he had washed their feet and taken his garments and was set down again, he said unto them, know you what I have done unto you? Now, we already know the answer to that because he said, you don't know what I'm doing. Watch. Ye call me Master and Lord, and ye say, well, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and Master, have washed your feet, ye also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that ye should do as I have done unto you. And here's the message, Peter. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord, neither is he that is sent greater than he that sent him. If you know these things, happy are ye if you do them. He said, Peter, you don't understand, but in 5 minutes when it gets all done, I'm going to sit back down, I'm going to give you a little sermon, you're going to say, oh, in this business you got to stay low. In this business, weakness is an asset. In this business, meekness is strength under control. In the waiting time for why and what and I don't understand is we can make the big mistake of saying, well, I'm just going to have to go at it because he's not being clear and I don't understand it, or forget about it like we say in New York and just fall behind. Now here's the 2 appeals. Fill in the blank in your life. Lord, dost thou? What are you doing? Why is this happening? What do I need? And this is what you want to say. You want to say, Lord, keep talking because I'm listening. And here's the other appeal. Lord, what you did back then shook me up, but I see it now. Thank you for keeping me with you. Thank you for giving me the understanding. I got this thing going on with my foot, and I was in agony last night. Agony. And you feel guilty, Again, this Italian thing. I never asked you for nothing, Lord. It's like you're saving it for the big thing when you really need it, I don't ask him for nothing, And I'm telling you, last night I said, God, I don't deserve to feel better. I don't know how you heal and all that. We're not charismatics. I'm not looking for Benny Hinn, but I'm hurting and I want to go to sleep. And you can do it. Throbbing, boom, boom, moving, no comfort. And I wake up at 2 in the morning to do the thing that 65-year-old men do at 2 in the morning, and I thought, my foot doesn't hurt. And I went back to sleep, woke up, slept like 9 hours, looked at it doesn't hurt. And I was on my way to the gym this morning, and it hit me. I don't hear you crying in thanksgiving the way you were crying in pain. I just broke out, man. Lord, thank you for making me better. Well, I'm still limping, but I slept. I wonder what he's doing in your life. I wonder if there's anything that's got you saying, Lord, this wasn't supposed to be this way. This doesn't make sense. Hang in there. The rich, green, thick grass grows in the valleys, not on the mountaintops. Preacher? Okay.